on the video.
That's right, baby.
I just not, it wasn't.
No.
All right, guys, shut up. You too. Thank you. All you at home, shut up.
That's right.
Those people that aren't here. Okay, so where we are. Let's just go and take a look at the schedule. So today is the 4th. May the 4th be with you. Right? Yeah, that was a Star Wars joke. Again, what was due last week? Create your content and menu system, right? I have not graded this week, and here's why. I'm all out of fucks to give. Sorry, I shouldn't cuss so much.
Yeah.
Right? I'm all out of presents to give. I'm kidding. Why I have not bothered grading this week is, quite honestly, I know you guys are in the middle of developing your theme from your template, right? Okay. And I know that if you're in the middle of that, it's going to be hard for me to go grade your menu system because that's the glitch in the matrix that I was talking about, right? So I'm kind of giving you guys a pass on that assignment this week, kind of, Sherrod, but not really. So come create your theme from your template due by the end of this week. Come next week, right? You know, I am then gonna mark these off. So technically you kind of got an extra week to do it, but don't, you know what I mean, yes, Sherrod?
I got
okay. Don't take advantage of me, Sherrod.
It's illegal, but I'm reading your mail, bro.
Right, because those eyes of yours, they, you know, they can hypnotize me, and you know, I don't want you to do that, Sherrod.
That's not what mine is.
Yeah, I know, it's okay. You should have heard what was going on in WEB170.02 last night.
I was here.
Oh, that's right, Brad. That's right. Where just so you guys know what was happening in WEB170.02. Chris Cornwell made this sound at me, and I was like, my 6-year-old does that.
Yes.
Don't make daddy mad. And it really creeped him out. And so for the rest of the class, I just kept on busting him on, you know, daddy don't like that, Chris. And he could barely even stay in the classroom, right? Tatiana was even starting to get really creeped out, right? Thaddeus. So anyhow, I thought I'd share that with you guys. It was a great time. So where we are then in terms of lectures, we should have created the navigation and menu system in WordPress this past, what's today, Thursday? This past Tuesday. Today we are going to talk creating the template files. So the assignments that go with this then are create your main and submenu systems, where, let's just say it like this. I need to make an update to this assignment, okay? So, and I just haven't gotten there. You know what? How about I just do that right now, okay?
All right.
Because there's just been a requirement on this assignment that I've missed, apparently putting in there. So the requirement that is missing in the assignment then is the using the list categories function. Page. The list categories function to display blog categories. Use the if page conditional. Using like the is page. Good thing I brought my jacket today. It was really hot
I know,
earlier
right?
today, and I was like, maybe I won't bring my jacket, but I did today.
And all the rooms yesterday were boiling.
Yeah.
If page.
Well, let's read it back really quick. So for your menus, your main and submenu systems, create your main menu system using the pages and using the WP nav menu function, right? Create your submenu system, your sidebar or wherever, using the WP list pages function to get the destination child pages for each gateway parent page, and using the WP list categories function to display blog categories, both of those using some conditional tags like the is page function. Okay, so remember the is page function, right, is the one that if we look at then index.php here, this is the one that I wrote in the H2 tag, a conditional that if. So this is one of those conditional statements, right? So if we go back to the assignment and we click on this using some conditional tags here. Conditions for if you're on the home or the front page or et cetera, right? So therefore, if we are on a page, get the title of the parent page, okay? Else, write the title of blog in there. For the then navigation items, if we're on a page, right? And if the page has a parent, list pages, child of the parent page. Else, if we're actually on the parent page, like portfolio or something, list pages, child of the post ID, meaning child of portfolio. If we're on logos, go look at the post parent portfolio and give me children of that post parent. Does that make sense? Remember how we did that? So this is a really good exercise right here in the language of conditional WordPress logic, right? How WordPress wants you to think about things, right? Instead of saying, if you're on a subpage, do this. You are then going to say, if you're on a page that has a parent, do this. And if so, get the children of said parent, right? Instead of saying, if you're on a child page, get the siblings of said child pages, right? Because that conditional doesn't exist in the WordPress world, not that I've found. I mean, it does, but it's phrased this way. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes. Perfect sense.
Okay.
That's where my wife is the parent of my child.
Yeah, you can, So then else, right? So the condition here, if is page, else, if we're not on a page, then list the categories, right? So this is basically then what I want you to do. Again, don't go copying and pasting this, write it out, right? Especially if you go copying and pasting this from my GitHub, right? And I see the comments identical to what I wrote, you're busted. You're just busted, okay? You won't be allowed to come to our end of school party, and I will not buy you any alcohol. Okay. End of quarter party. Okay, so does that make sense? That's that assignment, right? So now what we need to do is, currently we are using index to do everything, right? And this can be done in terms of, I'm going to go ahead and erase that now. We can write conditionals like if is page, do this, right? That's again where I wrote that one conditional the other day of, just rewrite it really quickly because I deleted it. Right, so this is where, again, what was happening when we were doing the navigation system before we did our navigation system actually in WordPress. Remember the bug that you discovered, Bella, that it went to 404 page. And as soon as Dreamweaver decides it wants to respond here, then if we are on our demo for spring 2017-02. And again, if I then type into the URL something that's not found, basically it gives us this statement, right? In other words, nothing is found in the database, right? And we need to then create a page like if it's not found, hey, 404 error, the page you're looking for does not exist. Try search, okay? So this then, if I looked at GitHub, you guys can really do yourself a favor in terms of learning this WordPress stuff. Dig through my business website theme repository, right? Take a look at the files and what's going on, because this is really a model of what I'm trying to get you guys to do in this class. Right? So if I have then a template page for 404 here, okay, this is where then in that template page 404, it is saying H2 error, paragraph tag, the page you were looking for does not exist, try search. And then I've coded in the get search form function that displays search form. okay? And then I've styled it appropriately. So again, you can do a whole WordPress website just using index.php, but if you were going to do that, you would have to write so many of these conditionals, right, that it might become inefficient, because there are certain things that we want to display on one certain location in a WordPress website. In other words, notice I'm not saying page, I'm saying location. So if we are, just go to my demo, right? If the location we are, I want to say if the location we are at is, but then that's ending a sentence with a preposition, and that bugs me. If we are on the location of the front page, we could use index.php, but if we create a file called frontpage.php, that's where then WordPress is going to say, are you on the front page? If so, I am going to look for the file front-page to load as the template file for that page. Okay, so did you guys do work in the ITC 240 class of where you did a template page, and based off of the ID number of whatever you were querying for, you then populated that page with certain information? Okay, in other words, here's a website that I did 2008 or so, where this is the template page, products.php, right? If I search for any product then, and I hit the go button, right? It has then queried the database for product ID 105. It is then using the template page productsfound.php that queries the database for product 105, and given that query, it will return these details. Okay, so if I want to go back to products and then query for another product, I just queried for product 103, okay, using the products found template file to then fill in this information. Does that make sense? Right? So that's the very similar concept that then we are going to be using here in WordPress. Okay, so instead of writing out our own custom files like that, we are going to use the WordPress file structure that it wants to use. So if we then look at the lecture for today, creating the template files for a WordPress theme, in your themes folder, then you will have, again, a bunch of these files: index.php, header.php, footer.php, page.php, single.php, so on and so forth. Each one of those performs a different task, or each one of those is the template file for a WordPress supported task, meaning a WordPress supported task like displaying the contents of the front page. Okay, a task like displaying the contents of a page using page.php. The task of showing the contents of the blog feed using index.php. A task of showing the contents of a single posting using single.php, so on and so forth. Does that make sense? So therefore, what we have to do is we have to go and create those files now. So to start out with those files, we want to first go and create the include files. So much like when you guys were in WEB200 or WEB120 or you guys did that in ITC 240 where you used include files, okay? So what do I mean by that? Well, if I go to the demo then for the UW sites, make your website responsive. So if I load index.php then, I used a PHP include function that the argument it wants to, or the parameter, it wants a string value as an argument, right? And the string value is to load a file within a folder. Make sense, right? So therefore, if index.php loads, it will go into the includes folder to look for header.php, which has the content of doc type all the way through the head, all the way down to somewhere that I chose to cut this file off. Again, if you were in my Web200 class, we talked about, well, where do you want to cut this file off, right? Make sense? I typically go down and to the, let's actually see if I can find a drawing of it. So I typically like to, for the header include, go all the way past the opening div tag of my content area, right? Same thing with the footer include. I like to put inside the footer include the closing div tag for my content area, okay? And then I can do a sidebar, I can do navigation, everything, etc. like that. So this concept is no different than that concept, right? So let's start out then by creating the document header, okay? So again, what we need to do is find the appropriate place to take our content, right? In other words, I typically like going all the way through the opening div tag of my content area. Cut that. I am going to create a new file. I'm going to make a PHP file. I'm going to paste everything that I just cut from the doc type all the way through my opening middle div tag. And I'm going to save this as, and yesterday I saved it in the wrong place to start out with. So today I'm going to try to save it in the right place. I'm going to go into my themes folder, right? And so there's my index.php file, right? And at the same root of my index.php file, I am going to name this header.php. I'm going to save that. Okay. So now header.php, you can see that it shows up there in my theme folder at the same level as index.php. Okay. So I need to write an include statement here. Okay. Similar to this. But instead of writing using the PHP include function, we are going to use a WordPress authored function called getHeader. So the getHeader function basically then includes the header.php file. You can have more than one header file as well, where you can then pass the name of the header file. So if you want header dash name, right? Header 1, header 2, header 3, right? If you have multiple header files. How many of you have ever used multiple header and multiple footer files that you've included? Okay. So you can do that here as well, just by using the naming conventions, right? Where then what you would do is say, get header, get the one for home, okay? But we are just going to use the default WordPress written function, get header. Okay. I save that then, and header.php is saved, and we go back to the demo here, and that's right, home HTML. It's not what I want there. I'm going to go, and there's many ways to do this, but let me update a link right now. In my header file, on your logo for a link back to the home page. There's different functions that you can use. The one that I've used is echo get settings home. So on my logo here, the href, I'm just going to paste that in there. Yeah, I know I copied and pasted, but I wrote that myself a long time ago. So, I don't know if I refresh and I hit that, but it sends me here. Okay. So if I did this correctly, it looks like nothing happened. Yay, the header included. Woo. I need to do the same thing with the footer. Go to my index.php and go grab everything from the closing div tag everything from the closing div tag to the closing HTML tag. And I am going to save this as footer.php at the same roots of index and header. We're at the same level. So there it is. And if I did that correctly, and I went back here and I refreshed, yay, hooray, right? No, that wasn't a funny one? Sure. The pressure to come up with these jokes, Sherrod, is pretty severe sometimes. So, you know, I mean, have a little compassion.
I do.
Okay. For a failed comedian like me. For a failed comedian and a dude who doesn't want to do design anymore because it keeps him up late at night. So therefore now we should have get header, footer, and a get footer, okay? Another include that we typically want to put into the system is sidebar. So the sidebar.php file is typically the file that then contains just what it sounds like, the sidebar stuff like your sub navigation, like we did. And that's where a lot of widgets also can live. So down the road, we are going to register dynamic sidebars, but we are not registering a dynamic sidebar right now. We are not registering a dynamic sidebar right now, okay? This is also one of the areas of confusion in the labeling system in WordPress. Dynamic sidebar is where you put widgets in there. The sidebar file is where you can put widgets in there, but it is the actual file. You will be confused on that probably for a while. But nonetheless, what I want to do is, just like this drawing right here, I want to take the information that is in the sidebar, that the code should look similar for each and every page, right? Again, we can, just like the header, we can use names in our sidebar as well. So if we have multiple sidebars, we can get the sidebar using the name of whatever sidebar, passing that as an argument through the function, right? But we are, for now, just going to, so we can do this, right? Get sidebar, pass the name of the sidebar through there to get this file. But for right now, to start out with, we are just going to go back to index.php. And I am going to cut oops, I didn't put it in my get footer, did I? Let's do that really quickly.
Can you cut it with the sidebar?
I did, didn't I? Thought we. I don't know what's going on here, what I did, but let's just correct it either way. Footer, right? So let's go back to then here. Go back here then, and I am going to cut sidebar out of index.php, create a new file, paste the sidebar in there, save as sidebar.php. At the same level again, save. And then I am going to go back here to index. And say get sidebar. So So this is a typical convention that you might see, right? Now, you may, instead of having the get sidebar and get footer isolated side by side like this here, you may choose to put your sidebar include actually in your footer include, right? Because you can do includes within includes, just like here in the header file include, I've then done an include for navigation, right? So it depends on how you want to develop your theme, right? For now, we're just going to leave it this way, where when index.php loads, we go and get the header. This then text right here becomes the page specific content. In other words, if you want to take a look at that visually, this right here becomes the page specific content, right? Which now is this. And then we get the sidebar include and get the footer include. And if we've done it properly, we go and we load our page. Looks like nothing happened, right? We go to portfolio. Things are working. The blog categories are working, right? Things are working just fine, okay? So from here then, this is where then, given if we are, so I'm going to go back to my demo. If I'm on the front page, my front page looks significantly different than my other pages, does it not? Right? In other words, in this front page here, what we're going to do down the road, if I look at the demo repository here, my front page then doesn't have the typical, or not, it just doesn't have the text area like page and single do, but it's got some widgets in there that we are going to write some custom loop type stuff in there, okay? In the index file then, we may have some custom things in here like get the time, get the author in the category. So let's start kind of chopping things up. The file, so I'm going to actually delete that again. So right now we have then our index.php, we have our header include, we have our footer include, and we have so far a tidy little website. And again, we can start customizing things using conditional statements, or what we may want to do instead then is look at the other typical files that WordPress likes to use. So for pages and postings, again, the index.php file is the file that when the blog feed loads, right? Sometimes it's the home page, sometimes it's a page like blog that we set up, okay? But this is where then we've tagged it with index.php, okay? Pages then are the regular pages in your website. I'm just going to close a few windows here.
Is the page and index PHP following the same construction? Are they constructed the same way? Or?
Yeah. Yeah, they're just, the only thing different, they're constructed the same way, if I'm understanding what you're saying, right? They're constructed the same way in terms that they call the same includes and have the loop in there.
Yeah.
the thing is, the loop is going to look different given where you are, the location of where you are on the site. So basically, that's why you then make things into separate files, because if you're on a page, your loop looks one way. If you're on the blog feed, your loop looks another way. If you're on a single posting, your loop looks another way. If you're on the front page, it may look a different way.
But they're all using that page template, that PHP.
Hold on, we'll get there. Yeah.
Thing.
Yeah, we're just about to hit that. So for page.php then, this is, again, if we look at a typical information architecture like I drew up on the board early on in this class, which I'm trying to go reference here. This is where we're going to use page.php for the typical pages in our information architecture, right? So I can then, I've got my basic structure, my basic construction down here with how I want my template system to look. So this is where then on index.php, we can take this file, save as, save it as page.php at the same level as everything else, right? And let's change the label to page.php. So again, WordPress will want to load certain files given the location in your site. So now, if I go to a page like portfolio or logos or print or websites, it is now going to be loading page.php because the WordPress system has analyzed what type of a post object is this? What answer did it get? Page. It is the post object called page. So therefore, we are going to use page.php as the template file. Make sense?
Yep.
Now, we can then say, great, page.php, check. Save as. Single.php. Label it single. Go back to the demo. And if I go to blog, right, again, the blog feed uses index.php. If I hit a single posting, it then, again, WordPress says, what type of post object are we looking for, or is this? It is then a posting, right? So therefore, we are going to load the template file for single.php. And here's why you would want to then use different files for different locations. What does, so postings that are timely, what might they have on them that pages that are not timely have? I gave you the answer a few minutes ago. What do postings have that are timely content that pages typically do not have? That makes sense? Right? So single blog postings typically will have the date and category stamp. Sometimes by the author. Okay? So therefore, if that's the case, then if I look at then single.php here, posted on the time in the category. So the time in so now we should have posted on 12:26 a.m. by M. Sinkula in the category of news. This is not how I want the time to display. So we'll look up WP, the time function. So the argument that gets passed through it, has anybody ever used the date function in PHP? Where you look at this chart and it uses, you know, whatever structure you want. So we use the same kind of structure in WordPress. So if we say F, J, Y, I need to use a string like that. I do. Capital F, lowercase j, comma, uppercase Y, and we look at the charts, F, a full textual representation of the month. Where's J? Lowercase j, day of the month. Uppercase Y. A full numeric representation of the year. Posted on April 28th, 2017 by M. Sinkula. Now, I have that author as my display name. If I go into my WP admin, and I want to change my display name, nope, users. Publicly display name as okay, makes sense? So Same thing here. So that's where, you know, you can start to see that, oh, okay, this is why then we use the template files. We could have written a conditional in index.php that said, if is the blog feed or single, write in this. But instead, we can use a template page. So I'm going to take this, and then on my index.php, typically same thing. Okay. That I want a byline on my postings, right? But not typically a byline on my pages. Does that make sense? Right? How many of you look at the internet? Once in a while? And on blog postings, there's typically a date, author, category kind of thing. And on pages, there's not, right? So now if I go to the blog feed, right, that byline is now on each one of the blog feeds as well. Down the road, why we want to separate index from single is down the road in the demo here, you can see that on the blog feed, I've used the featured image and the excerpt instead of the content. So this is what's useful about then getting your raw foundation for setting up your theme, right? This is why I like starting out with index.php, get all your stuff in place, chop index.php up into your include files, get those in place, right? Then take index.php and make the other files out of it. And then slowly but surely start customizing those other files, right? So now we have index, page, single, all right? So if we go back to the lecture then, single, so we have pages or page, single. Now we want to do the static front page, okay? And here's the deal with the front page. Remember where in the template system that I set up, if I look at my main page, I have a regular looking loop that gets the content and then should get the sidebar. But on the home page, in my template structure, that's where eventually I'm going to have a flex slider and some widgets that get certain things. Okay, so for right now, I am just going to save page.php as front-page.php. And I'm going to save, right? So now, if I go back to the front page, it's loading front-page.php. And here's what we're going to eventually do. This is why I had you guys do a main level template and then a home level template. Eventually, I'm going to do this. I'm going to just do it right now. Screw eventually. I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to go to home.html, and inside the middle, notice I don't have text and sidebar. So I am then going to go and copy my instead of that text area, bang, text area is gone. Okay. So if I hit save then, and I load my home page again, we haven't hooked up Flex Slider properly, so it's not working yet, right? It's still loading the sidebar. I don't want a sidebar on my homepage. But what I do want here is put my label back there. So you can choose to do it now or later, but I'm just choosing to do this now because, I don't know, might as well. So now my front page is labeled front page, and it looks more like the home page layout. This still is static information from my template, but eventually we are going to take the loop to grab the home page content here. We're going to put a flex slider in that actually works a certain way. And then these latest postings, we are going to write a secondary loop to go grab the latest postings from our blog. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. So, huh? Yeah. It'll clear up as you do it, right? So the last one, you like that hashtag? When I decided to start tagging or labeling these things, right? To know what file was loading. So one that I don't have in here, but that we could have in here is, I'm going to take page.php, save as 404.php. And for 404.php, we're not going to use the loop. We're just going to say what was that here?
Social life not found.
Social life not found? Nah, I'm going to leave that. So now, if we go back to our demo, and if then we type something that's not going to be found, that's where we have the 404 error. Okay. And here is where we then have the blog article stuff. So what if we didn't want that to show up on the 404 pages? This blog stuff here. Right. We could go edit the sidebar to then say, else if we're not on a page, if is 404 is not 404. I don't know if I have to put a parentheses around is 404. Let's see if it works.
You could also just take it out the sidebar from your 404 definition.
Couldn't I?
Just check it. And make sure that
Yeah,
the mud is a little bit clearer.
I could. Yeah, and those are the choices that you're going to have to make, right? But now here it says blog. So what do I do on my, let's see, I think in my business site for the 404, right? So I'm going to just not do this for right now. I'm just going to leave the,
Yeah, but YouTube is still a lot.
I could, or this is where we could say if is page or is 404 but it's not going to have any children pages, right? I think on my 404 pages, I typically load the whole page tree, maybe. Yeah, so you can load the whole page tree, right? So this is where I can say for categories, this page is not 404 or is 404 list categories. If his page anyway, I'm just gonna delete that stuff right now. But you can start to see how you can then use those conditionals to start doing what you want where, right? And that's pretty much the foundation of working with WordPress, is to understand, again, everything is a post object, right? So if the post object is type page, do this. If it's type 404, or if it's a page that is 404, do this, right? If it's a single, do that, right? So there are little discrepancies in there, but overall, I'm just going to leave the blog thing there. Let's see, what do I do on my business site? I can't remember. Yeah, I basically show the whole page tree. So in my sidebar, then, right, this is where I have, you know, if it's 404 and search, then list the services headline and the children of 185, portfolio children of 186. You know, same thing. If is post parent, do some stuff, right? If is not 404, search, or if children, put this stuff in there, so on and so forth. So this is
just trying to be nice to give them a leap of death.
Yeah, yeah. So again, this is where, you know, this is an example of how to do those conditional statements for that stuff. And, you know, again, programming is a set of instructions. So you start with a set of instructions like this, and then you build in all the other conditions and change the whatever until you finally have written a set of instructions that it outputs the what you want it to output given a certain condition or scenario, right? That's the plan. Yeah, that's how like I said, it wasn't until I really discovered, you know, until I started working with WordPress like this that I went, oh, programming is just a set of instructions. There's no magic there. You just have to tell the machine what to do. There's no magic wand. It's a typewriter. Okay. Okay, so that is this lecture. So what you need to do for the assignment then is create the template files for your theme. You need to break your theme apart into header.php, footer.php, sidebar, index, page, single, front page, templates. Tag each file with the file's name. Label them so I know I can see what's happening. All righty? All right. What?
That's for like next week.
I don't know.
I don't know. The schedule does.
My schedule does.
Okay, I asked you.
Here's what I know. I like tacos.